wealthy or obtained so many assets. Things were so cheap. Do these people that are saying this, these young people, do they know what the average income was for an American in 1965? I'm going to show you. Do they know what the average car cost in 1965? The salaries were small in comparison to today. Yes, that's not their fault. Yes, they could buy a car for like $2,500, $3,000, brand new. But do you know what their salaries were? When you compare the cost of the car to their salary then, I'll tell you tonight, these people are not comparing apples to apples. This is not fair comparison. And it's wrong to say that it's the baby boomers, as though the baby boomers were the ones passing all the legislation and pushing all this. Were there some? Yeah. But the baby boomers didn't create the Federal Reserve. That came around in 1913. And that's the Federal Reserve that's debased our currency. The government loves, and the globalists and the change agents love to blame their mistakes on someone, particularly when it creates division or when it will justify the ultimate goal, which I'm afraid for some is the desire to see older people dehumanized and to lose their civil liberties and right to life, and to see the right to die becomes the duty to die. To get rid of the Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security expenses, and we'll go to active euthanasia, socialized medicine that teaches young nurses and doctors and society that these people are become a drain. They need to go. Mao loved to pit old culture against his new culture, the four olds of Mao. I want to talk tonight about that with historian Trevor Loudon. And I want to bring some comparisons here for these young people that maybe you want to show these video clips, because a lot of them might be shocked to find out what the salaries were in 1965. Yeah, they, in today's numbers, could pick up a car pretty cheap. But do you know what their salaries were? We have to have perspective, but we also have to understand how groups are being pitted against each other. And why is it that the change agents want to get rid of older people, or at least to undermine respect for the older people? I wonder what it is that the baby boomers could tell today's young people, which, by the way, it's the baby boomers that for many of them are their grandparents. What is it they could learn from their grandparents? Some of these people, of course, it's their baby boomers, the baby boomers that are their parents. But many of these baby boomers are the grandparents of this young generation today. And what is it they could be learning from these grandparents? Well, we can't have that. Do you really want the grandparents who are the boomers influencing today's young people? Because what is it they would likely tell them based on their years of living and wisdom? So why not undermine the credibility they would have? Why not attack them, demean them, dehumanize them, paint them as evil and greedy and the source of all suffering and oppression? Because if you're going to rewrite the history books, if you're going to tear down statues and get rid of the history of America, you certainly can't have the historians walking around, the grandparents, the boomers, telling them what is really truth, what's really history, how it used to be, and how it should be based on our organic documents, our founding documents. These are truth tellers, many of them. If you can't get them eliminated fast enough, you should at least be able to eliminate their influence by attacking them and marginalizing them and characterizing them. We better see this for what it is. Maybe we can use tonight's broadcast and interview to help young people not fall into this brainwashing. That's with Trevor Loudon. Colonel Rob Maness is going to join us. There was a tweet put out today by an attorney, and he says that the White House realizes there could be 10,000 casualties with our U.S. soldiers if war breaks out in Iran. Where are we at with that? What's the likelihood that we go to war? I'm going to talk to Colonel Rob Maness about that. Is President Trump being walked into a trap? I want to talk to Anni Cyrus about who she thinks will fire the first shot. Will it be Iran? Will Iran, at some point when they've drawn out the negotiations and as long as they can, when they've bought all the time they can, and when the clock is finally run on that, will Iran go ahead and decide to be the one that does the first strike? Is that possible? Is Israel prone to finishing what they wanted to finish during the 12-day war, but apparently were called off from finishing? Will Israel go ahead and be the one to carry out the first strike, or will it be Iran? Is America going to get caught up in this because we're there to back up Israel if they need our help? How could this be a backlash if it goes bad? If it goes bad, how could that be a backlash onto conservatives, onto Christians, onto Zionists, onto Christian Zionists, onto the Jews? Who's going to be blamed for all this? Oh, it's Israel. It's the Christian Zionists and Zionists in America. Oh, wow. I don't know about you, but it seems like this could also be a real spiritual trap that's being set up. But maybe, who knows? Maybe this whole thing will just work out. They'll all agree to something on paper and it'll all go away. I don't know, but it sure is tense now, isn't it? We're going to talk to Anni about that, including an Iranian who just spoke recently in Geneva, Switzerland, to a UN group. I'm going to play about 3 minutes of her speech. You got to hear it. You got to hear that speech tonight from her. Let's see what else. Oh, we've got a big old fire that was just set in Iran in a building, a government building, a military building, I think. I'll ask Anni about it. Was that Mossad? And then Chip Roy, I think he's running for, I don't know what he's running for. We'll find out. But he's running for an office in Texas. He had something to say about Sharia, Islamic law in Iran, Muslim Brotherhood and the Islamists targeting Iran. And then a video clip with Benjamin Netanyahu and Dr. Phil. That's a clip I want to play tonight. Get Anni to respond to that as well. We got a lot to get to. I don't think I've left anything out. We got Trevor Loudon, Colonel Rob Maness, and then Anni Cyrus. So that's a pretty good lineup tonight, don't you think? All right, before we do, remember, we are brought to you by you. A lot of you are ordering now. Thank you. Happy Howl. This is the food Dolly loves. This is what I give to her every morning and every night. You don't have to refrigerate it. You don't have to freeze it. Easy to travel with. Put it up on the shelf. Feed it to them. Dolly loves it. Pearl is on it. She loves it as well. And folks, it is 100% human grade ingredients, no artificial preservatives, complete and balanced for all life stages. And it is cooked in a USDA kitchen. Dollyfood.shop. Dollyfood.shop. Be sure to go over to worldviewtube.com/sponsors. You know all the sponsors there. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. You'll find them there from, I think we have a lower third for that. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. You'll find all of our sponsors there. You know who they are. I don't think I need to go through all of them every night, do I? No, I don't, because we have too much to get to. So let me just quickly say, they're there. You know who they are. Please do business with them, because I think it'll help support your health and us at the same time, whether it's Numi, Bella Grace, Gatatana. Get your satellite phone, your solar generators, your water purifiers, your antibiotics and medical kits on hand. Be your own urgent care. There's so much there. Get your free packet of information on gold, how to put gold into your IRA. So much there. You know it. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Can I send you to another one real quick? Worldviewtube.com/events. Worldviewtube.com/events. We now have, as of last night, the website is up for you to register for the free 23rd Annual National Worldview Weekend. 2 changes this year. We are moving it to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We've never held our national conference there. We do that in Branson, Lake of the Ozarks, last year in Memphis here. But this year we're moving it to Milwaukee, to the Waukesha Expo Center, to be precise, suburb of the Milwaukee area. There is our conference from last April. We were filled, standing room only. Standing room only. It is going to be free. We were just one night. Now we're going to go Friday night, all day, Saturday, and we're bringing about 8 speakers with us. It is free, but you have to have a ticket. To reserve a seat, you better go now to worldviewtube.com/events. Don't do it unless you're serious about attending. worldviewtube.com/events, worldviewtube.com/events, Friday night, October 23rd, Saturday, October 24th, free of charge, brought to you by our foundation. We'll be taking some offerings, but this is what our foundation does. Helps to put on free events along with all the free programming we do to help people understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview, but also to educate people, to edify people, to equip people. That's what we're doing here, folks. We want to be different than any other program out there, any other network out there. We are deliberately different by choice. And I've been doing this 36 years by God's grace. And I hope that track record causes you to say, you know what? I think after 36 years and his books and his documentaries and conferences, I don't think this guy is going to change horses. I think we can trust that he's going to keep it steady between the mustard and the mayonnaise, if you will, between the white line and the yellow line. Let's go with the fact that we have a consistent track record and resume. I think we can support this organization. I hope you feel that way, because we certainly do need it. Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. So get registered, folks. All right, we got to get going. We got a lot to do. Joining me now is Trevor Loudon. I want to talk about the war on boomers. The war on boomers. We're being told that it's the boomers that have stolen the future of various generations that have come behind them. And yet, many of us know that the boomers didn't have it easy. Some of them had to go off to Vietnam. They didn't come back, or they came back missing limbs. Some came back, but they didn't know what their fate would be when they left. Some of the boomers, they bought homes with 16, 17, 18% mortgage interest. No generation in America has had it easy. And of course, many of the boomers have seen their retirement eaten away with inflation. But why is it that the powers that be, the power elite, the intelligentsia, the socialists, the globalists, whatever you want to call them, why is it that they want to have the younger generation resent the older generation? There is a historical framework by which this has been done again and again. You must find some group of people to blame the problems on. Politicians can't accept responsibility. We can't say, oh, it was the Federal Reserve, 1913, and its creation, which was a total scam, that we were told it was being started to control inflation and stop bank failures. We've had more bank failures and inflation, well, since the Federal Reserve was created than we ever had before. And we can go on and blame so many things on too much government, the abuse of government. But they can't have you blaming the government. They want the government to be the savior. So they need to find someone to blame. Let's blame it on the boomers. Hitler blamed it on the Jews. Stalin blamed it on the farmers. There always has to be a group that is marginalized and characterized and terrorized and is told is the source of all suffering and oppression. In many ways, Christians are experiencing that today. The Jews are experiencing that today. This is an historical strategy that very few people are understanding when it comes to what is now a very large battle on social media that seeks to blame the problems not just on the Jews, but on the boomers. Joining me now is Trevor Loudon. Trevor, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much, Brandon. Always great to be here. You know, they're blaming it on us, Brandon.
Well, we're not old enough.
We're not old enough yet.
I'm not a boomer.
Really.
I was born in 69. What does that make me, Logan? Going to look it up. I don't even know what my I think am I the X generation? I don't even know. I don't know. Look it up, Logan. What's 1969? What am I? I'm Gen X. I am. What year were you born, Trevor?
58.
58. What is he, Logan? You're a boomer, boy. You're a boomer.
I'm a boomer. It's all my fault.
It's all your fault, Trevor.
I grew up in affluence.
We finally found the source of all suffering and oppression. We found it. The source of all suffering and oppression. Trevor Loudon. We've solved the world's problems, folks. Good night, America.
It's all done. Done and dusted.
Go ahead, Trevor. What is this really all about?
Well, this is, this is the globalists, the communists, the enemies of America. seeking yet another means to divide us. They've used race, they've used class, they've used gender, they've used every single thing they can. And this is the latest iteration. You know, in a normal society, the generations are bound together. You know, you respect your parents, you respect your grandparents, the grandparents educate the children. You know, yeah, it's a very key part of keeping a society together, those intergenerational bonds. So if you can get a lot of young, poor guys who don't see a lot of future for themselves to have yet another source for their problems other than themselves, yeah, it's going to find fertile ground. And, you know, sometimes it's the Jews, sometimes it's whatever, but now it's the boomers as well. So, you know, it's just going to make those Thanksgiving get-togethers even more fraught than they have been already.
Well, it's really reminiscent, is it not? Stalin. Didn't he blame the problems on the farmers and deal with them accordingly? Isn't it the same thing as Karl Marx and the bourgeoisie, the property owners versus the proletariat, the workers? I mean, you can just go through every dictator and find where they do pick one or two groups and declare they are the source of the suffering, the source of the problem, right?
Yeah, right now the Russians have decided to promote Jew hatred. Biden and Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton was Christian nationalists, meaning ordinary patriotic Christians. Okay, Christian conservatives. So yes, this is another way of driving a wedge. And Stalin wanted to communize the Soviet Union. He said there was a large a population of, particularly in Ukraine, of what they called kulaks, the rich peasant, meaning a peasant who had a little bit of land, maybe a couple of horses, maybe a little stall at the market, and could educate his children. That was regarded as a rich peasant, the kulak. And they were regarded as the main opponents of the collectivization of agriculture. They weren't going to give up their 2 acres. They were not going to give up their little plot of land. So Stalin forcibly confiscated all the grain from Ukraine and all the food and just denuded the place of any nutrition at gunpoint. And between 6 and 10 million people died of starvation to the point they were eating their own kids. You know, so this is the demonization of populations has been around for a long time, and the Marxists have really made a tool of it on a very scientific basis.
There's a YouTube channel out there called Dictators Files. I haven't watched any of their videos other than a little bit of this one. And it's called The War on the Farmers. You guys might want to find it on YouTube. Listen to what he says. Tell me if you agree with this analysis and history, Trevor.
Purges. There was a field, and on that field stood a farmer. He wasn't rich. He wasn't an enemy. He was simply free. But to Joseph Stalin, freedom in the hands of a peasant was more dangerous than any army. In the early 1930s, he declared war, not on nations, not on leaders, but on his own people. It was called dekulakization, a word that sounded bureaucratic, until you saw what it meant. Families torn from their homes, villages erased, entire communities branded as traitors. And it all began with one man's obsession: to break the spirit of the land. When the Russian Revolution ended, the countryside tried to breathe again. Peasants took back land, tools, and hope. They called themselves kulaks, a word that once simply meant fist. Strong-handed farmers, those who owned a little more than others, a horse, a plow, maybe a hired worker. For years, they were the backbone of the Soviet food supply. They grew the grain that fed the cities. Even Lenin had warned against attacking them too harshly. But Stalin saw something else. To him, the kulaks weren't partners. They were a threat. They represented independence. And in Stalin's Soviet Union, no one was allowed to be independent. In 1929, Stalin signed a new decree, the liquidation of the kulaks as a class. No trial, no definition, just a signature, and a death sentence for millions. As historian Robert Conquest wrote in The Harvest of Sorrow, Stalin's war against the kulaks was the first great terror, the model for every purge that followed. Within months, tens of thousands of families were labeled enemies. Their property was seized, their animals slaughtered, their homes burned. Some were executed on the spot. Others were packed into boxcars, bound for the frozen camps of Siberia. All for owning too much grain. All for refusing to surrender their land. When Stalin declared war on the kulaks, the battlefield wasn't a front line. It was every village in the Soviet Union. The orders came quietly, through party committees, local councils, factory meetings. Each town received a list, names, families, people to be dealt with. Stalin's new enemies were not soldiers or saboteurs. They were farmers, neighbors, the man across the fence. According to historian Sheila Fitzpatrick, the campaign turned society against itself. Villagers who once shared tools and bread were now forced to denounce each other for survival.
Wow. What do you make of that? You agree? You got it right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Stalin was a doctrinaire communist. Lenin was a bit more tactical. Stalin was just a fist. Stalin was a hammer, and he found a nail, and he destroyed the kulaks, regardless of what it was going to do to the rest of the country. Destroying his main productive source. But they did a dekulakization. Putin right now is justifying his attacks in Ukraine as a denazification. It's the same tactic. He's making up these imaginary Nazis in Ukraine who must be destroyed by taking over the whole country. That's what Stalin did 70 years ago. So you sort of understand why the Ukrainians are not very keen to give up their sovereignty to Putin.
So how do you see things going forward? I'm concerned about the rise of active euthanasia. I'm concerned about the dehumanization, the targeting of older people in our society. Do you find the timing of this rather suspicious at a time when active euthanasia is rising, when healthcare costs are rising, when there's the goal of depopulation, giving people shots that are killing people left and right, as we talk about a lot? There seems to be the overall desire to get rid of different people groups, but certainly now to target older people, and particularly at a time when Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security is supposedly a strain on the budgets. And now this is being put out into the cultural stream, that the problem is the boomers have been running the country for 40 years now, and they have all this wealth, and it's time for them to go. Of course, part of my problem before you answer that question, Trevor, is that someone that bought a house that was worth $50,000 or $100,000 that is now worth $500,000, $600,000. These young people, they don't understand that those people had nothing to do with the value of that house going up like that. That wasn't the value of the house going up. It was the dollar going down. They had nothing to do with that. And when the dollar went down, that meant their purchasing power was going down. So while their house may be worth quite a bit more, they were losing in the hidden tax of inflation. And now when they would go to buy an SUV, you could go buy an SUV for $100,000, a brand new SUV. So it wasn't like they got a free ride. Everything has gone up on them as well. Their health insurance, if before they got on Medicaid or Medicare, their purchases of automobiles, all the things that they need, groceries. So it's not like they got a free ride. And if they do sell that house, they then have to pay capital gains, most of them. And again, they've also paid an awful lot in taxes. I just don't think the young people understand that this value of their home is very subjective to it being sold. So many of them will never realize the value of that home because they're going to die with hospice care in the house. There's just not an equal understanding here by these young people as to the reality.
Well, look, and many of those grandparents are raising their grandchildren. They're paying the bills of their grandchildren. So look, this is like Zeke Emanuel, the brother of Rahm Emanuel. Zeke Emanuel is a famous bioethicist, which bioethics is a fancy way of justifying euthanasia and abortion, right? He said everybody should be basically prepared to die at 75, because after 75, you're consuming more resources than you're contributing. You're no longer a net gain to society. And this is my big argument against socialized healthcare. People forget this. In a free market healthcare system, you are a customer, and the system makes money by keeping you alive and happy and healthy and productive for as long as they can. They have that incentive. In a socialized healthcare system, that is a system with limited resources, but unlimited demands. Medical decisions are no longer made by doctors, they are made by accountants. And so, like an oncology department might have a budget of, say, $20 million a year, but they've used it all up by November. They're running out of money. So they have a 7-year-old girl with leukemia in one bed and a 75-year-old guy with prostate cancer in another, and they don't have enough to fund both of them. So who's going to lose out, do you think? Socialized healthcare is great as long as you don't get old.
Here's one website. This was a year ago. Boomers hit the timing lottery. They bought $1 million homes for 6 raspberries. A little facetious here, obviously. They went to college for a few $100s a semester. They could buy a reliable used car for a few $100s. All the while, they flooded our country with cheap labor, driving up the cost of housing and schooling. And they supported proposals like cash for clunkers, which ensured their grandkids would be paying $10,000 for a used car going forward. Now, as the youth of America recognize that they no longer have access to the American dream and want to drastically change their trajectory of the country and return to our glorious path, boomers are last line of defense for the very people who destroyed our country. They want one last dopamine rush, even if it means obliterating any hope or future for their grandkids, end quote. That's garbage, because most of these people had nothing to do with these policies.
Garbage. Look, the reason we have these bad policies is because we've had socialists inside our government for so long, instituting policies like socialized healthcare, all of these government policies that basically robbed Social Security, robbed all these retirement programs, made it very difficult for people to save for their own retirement. The boomers just did as best they could, as well as they could. The people who are here today would have done no better had they been in the same position. This is not a moral thing here. This is just people coping with what they could and the socialist policies inflicted upon them by these horrific governments. And so, but this is my point. The pressure is on now. We can't pay, Social Security is going broke. There will be no pensions in the government pensions in the future. So how do you avoid a crisis? You've got to raise the retirement age, and you've got to cut pensions, and more people have to die. More people have to die earlier, so you never have to pay out on them. So of course, like we all know that abortion was instituted for social ends. Margaret Sanger wanted to use abortion to purify the white race. to make sure there weren't too many brown and black babies born. Well, now they're using euthanasia to ensure that there are not too many useless eaters out there. And so that their socialist policies can go on a bit longer before they go completely bankrupt. If you give the government control of your healthcare and your economy, it's only a matter of time before they start to dictate how long you live. That's the accountants making the decision. In a socialist system, you are not an asset to society. Your wisdom isn't valued. You are basically a liability. You're regarded as a liability, and any businessman will tell you you minimize or eliminate your liabilities. So that's where we're heading.
There was we had my wife and I had some of our friends over for dinner over the weekend. The two couples, they're old enough to be my parents. I talk about them often, and I'm telling their age to give a perspective here. One of them told the story. They're in their early 80s. One of them told the story of how they got a place and they were paying $95 a month for a place. And they thought, the one spouse thought they were going to end up in the poorhouse. How could we afford $95 a month in rent, right? How could we afford this? We're going to end up in the poorhouse. The point I'm trying to make to these folks today, that young people that think that the boomers, they got so much for so cheap. You have to remember what it was their income was. Here is the United States Census Bureau, okay? The United States Census Bureau. In 1965, the median income of all families, so the middle, just the average income in 1965 was about $6,900, okay? So when you talk about what people paid for a car, I mean, if you were paying $1,500 for a new car, well, again, compare that to what percentage of your income was that. If you're paying $100 a month in rent and your groceries, add it all together real quick and figure out what percentage of your income. So these young people are looking at these cheap prices, but they're not realizing, well, their salaries were way down. Their salaries were low because, again, the purchasing power of the dollar was strong.
Yeah. Look, my first job, I got paid $1.47 an hour. And I thought I was rich when I went to a new job at $2 an hour. I thought I'd made it. Look, it's not the monetary, because the currency has been constantly devalued. It's how long you have to work, how much time you have to put in to afford a certain range of products. Like, how long do you have to work to earn a Big Mac? How long do you have to work to buy a 3-bedroomed house, etc.? And by the way, 3-bedroomed houses are a lot more luxurious than the 3-bedroom houses of the 1940s, who didn't have air conditioning, didn't have all the mod cons that they have today. Look, no generation, despite all the bad stuff that's going on, despite all the corruption and the debt and all the chaos that's going on in the economy, all government driven, this generation is still better off than any previous generation.
The average cost of a car in 1965, the average car in 1965 was around $2,500 to $3,000. Okay, so if your average salary is $6,900 and you're having to pay $2,500 to $3,000 for a new car, so you're giving about half of your annual salary to a car, and you still haven't paid taxes and your rent or mortgage and your other expenses. So, again, people need to go and do the math on this when they're like, oh, you guys had it so easy. Your house payment was, X dollars a year, so cheap. Well, go look what their income was, right? So they're not comparing apples and apples at all.
Yeah. The whole point is to obscure these comparisons, to stoke division, to stoke a sense of resentment against the older members of our society, who should be valued for what they can pass on. rather than reviled for what they've used. But that's the whole thing. You can use any statistic to prove a point, just about, if you know how to manipulate it. The whole point of this argument, Brandon, is certain forces are stoking deliberate division between the generations in America to further bring down the country for everybody. United we stand, divided we fall. So that's the real issue here. All the rest of it is just smoke and mirrors.
And isn't this part of Mao's little red book, the four olds? Get rid of the old culture, the old religions. So this is a Maoist ideology as well. Get rid of the old people. They're the problem. They're the one holding us back. But reality is, it's the older people, that many of them, who tell us what America was like when they were growing up, that this isn't normal. This is not how society is supposed to go. This is not according to our Constitution and our history. Some of these people, they fought communism in Vietnam. Many of them are passing quickly, but they were fighting communism in the wars like the Korean War. Of course, now many of the World War I, World War II, they're gone. Very few World War II even left. They're going quickly. But what we would have left today, folks fighting communism, would be those that went to Vietnam or the Korean War. But even if they didn't go to war, they were raised at a time when they're able to tell us their life lessons, and that this is not normal. This is not the way society is supposed to be run. This is not following the rule of law, right? This is not considered acceptable behavior and conduct from our government officials. They need to wipe out the old to bring in the new. They need to erase the history, not just the statues and the monuments and the museums. They need to erase the truth tellers. They need to erase the living historians, the older people who were there.
The link to America as it should be. If they can cut that link, if they can destroy your history, they can control the past. And I'll say this furthermore, most of this stuff has been fomented on the right by what we call the woke right, the left-wing right, which is invariably pro-Russia, invariably anti-American, and invariably anti-constitutional. The so-called woke right is actually left, posing as right. So this is their way of bringing America down into a revolutionary situation, and it's just one more part of the death by 1,000 cuts. So it's not, when you find out who's pushing the stuff, it's not hard to figure out why they're doing it.
Indeed.
It
Trevor
really
Loudon,
isn't.
TrevorLoudon.com, TrevorLoudon.com to get his great books and articles and everything else. It's at TrevorLoudon.com. And Trevor, as always, thank you for your time, your analysis, your history. This one, my parents are boomers, and you're a boomer. But I'm telling you, this war on boomers, if the young people think this doesn't come with a price, if they're being selfish and thinking it doesn't come with a price, they don't understand. Because when the boomers are targeted, or this is used to deprive them of their property and civil rights and humanization, the younger people that are maybe going along with it and feeding the narrative, they're going to find they're going to be served up as part of the problem when the time is right as well.
Yeah, exactly. And their wealth will be destroyed along with that of the boomers. Look, the older people in society are the reservoir of wisdom, of history. There's a reason why most societies venerate their elderly, because you cannot have a functioning society without the older people who remember the history and that can pass it on. That link to the past is super important, and they're trying to break that link, just as they did with Pol Pot, just as they did with Mao Zedong. Destroy the olds, break the links to the old society so you can create something new. This is a Marxist playbook, but now it's being pumped through the right. It's very concerning.
And through social media, it sure is. TrevorLoudon.com, TrevorLoudon.com. Thank you, Trevor.
You're most welcome, and thanks to the audience.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Trevor. We'll be right back, guys. Don't go away.
Consumers often ask, what should I expect when I take the Bella Grace elixir? And the answer's varied. It really depends on what your health and wellness needs are. I would consider this as your foundational core product for a whole range of health and wellness issues. Let me give you a few examples. If you're a little bit older and you have some joint health issues, some problems with mobility and discomfort, the elixir is going to be your best friend. If you have some skin health issues, wrinkles, hydration, aging, all of those elements are going to be benefited from the elixir, including age spots. Now, if you're in a younger demographic, maybe visual health is where you need some assistance. Eye fatigue, dry eyes, all of those are going to be benefited by the elixir. It's a core product because it benefits so many.
Joining me now is Colonel Rob Maness. Look at this. This is Robert Barnes. You don't have to agree with Robert on everything he says. I'm just bringing him up because he's out here saying this. Who is he? For those who don't know, well, he is a trial lawyer with a high-profile wins, he says, from his page on civil and criminal cases. But he's claiming that the White House expects 10,000 plus American soldier casualties, and they do indeed plan to put boots on the ground in Iran. Now, I bring that up because that's what's swirling out there. We may indeed be seeing boots on the ground. We already now have talk of boots on the ground in Gaza with this international peace board and militarization of that, something I am completely against. The idea of boots on the ground in Israel, Gaza, no, certainly not Iran. But is this going to be a bigger war than we expect if we fully get into it? Now we have about a third of the Navy over there. Afghanistan, that went on forever. It cost so much. Of course, we have Vietnam, many of us remember and understand that history. Wars, I think, often last longer than people expect, and they are often more deadly than they were expected to be. Joining to talk about that now is Colonel Rob Maness. Colonel, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, Brandon. Thanks for having me on.
Great to have you back, Colonel. What are you hearing, if anything, and if not hearing anything, would you be shocked if there's the talk of boots on the ground for a regime change in Iran? I mean, to do a regime change, I guess you're probably going to have to put boots on the ground. At this point, I just wish they had let Israel finish it instead of Donald Trump waving Israel off and then bragging later that he saved the supreme leader. I mean, we wouldn't even be having this conversation, perhaps.
Well, let me just start out with, look, I think President Trump wants to resolve things peacefully before any other objective. That's his intent. I think we have to acknowledge that's always out there with this president because he does things in unusual ways and his actions are somewhat unexpected at times. But this is serious. No, the short answer to your question is I'm not surprised that there are those especially the United States government and probably in the halls of European governments in their ministries of defense, especially those that keep pushing the Ukraine thing, that want to see boots on the ground and the United States do a full-on regime change. Have you taken a look at a map of Iran lately and looked at the terrain, folks? I've planned against this back when I was a captain, going through tactics school. We did planning against this country and these targets. And it was difficult then, and they weren't as capable as they are today, although their capability militarily has been greatly diminished. They're not anything close to what they were a year, before we did the strikes on the nuclear facilities, and the Israelis did the fabulous job with their air forces and their human intelligence network that destroyed the Iranians' defenses to the point where they didn't even get a shot off at a B-2 bomber, from what I could tell. Anyway, but there are always going to be elements in the United States government, especially in Republican administrations, that push the boots on the ground, say that you have to do it to do regime changes. I've always said is that for the people that voted for Donald Trump the second time, most of them, that is a non-starter. I think a majority of them getting involved in another ground war anywhere in the world, let alone in the Middle East again, that could potentially go decades and cost tens of thousands of American lives, not counting Allied lives and civilians and those kind of things. I think that is a non-starter for the voting base for this president. And he knows that. He absolutely knows that. So I do believe, though, there is a push to get him to do a full-on invasion, regime change war inside the United States government. But he's a very smart individual. He's his own man, in my opinion. He's proven that time and time again. And whatever the president decides is going to be from the perspective of not getting into another extended conflict on the ground.
Let's talk about Epstein. There are some people around the world, in the U.S., in Europe, that could use a massive distraction right now. Nancy Guthrie, I don't think, is a big enough distraction for him. Wait a minute. Breaking news. 24/7. Breaking news. They found a toothpick on the side of the road, Colonel. That's what we've been breaking news all week this week. They keep
3 miles down the road?
Yeah, 3 miles down the road, they found a toothpick.
Yeah.
Is it stupid? Have you ever seen something? Have you ever seen anything like that?
No, I was just complaining to the closest person to me, much to her chagrin, that there are so many. The biggest story in the world is what you and I are talking about with Iran, and every channel, including the so-called conservative one, that's a mainstream media channel, is talking about Ms. Guthrie. And God help them. I pray for them.
I know. We all have to say that. This is where we all have to throw in the disclaimer. I hope she comes back alive. We're praying for her.
Well, I don't think she's coming back alive. I think she's been dead for a while now.
I'm afraid she is.
And I'm just going to say that. I'm going to tell the truth. I'm not going to sugarcoat things, but they are in my prayers personally, because that's a tough situation.
Yeah, it is.
And it's made worse by the coverage, the incessant coverage. Let these people go, folks. But anyway, the Epstein thing, sure, there's an argument to be made that there are a lot of people in a highly placed and powerful positions and places and families and networks that could use a really good distraction. And Savannah Guthrie's mother is not enough of one. And none of the hearings in the Congress are enough of one. The Super Bowl's over, so that can't be a distraction. But, that's been there forever and is always going to be there. I'm not going to tie it to what's going on in Iran. What's going on in Iran is what I hope it is a culmination and ending of the 48-year war that Iran declared on the United States of America when I was 17 years old, and that it's finally going to be ended somehow. But if it's ended with boots on the ground, it's not going to end. It's not going to end. The Iranian people that are there have to be the ones to remove this regime. They have to.
And I'm not hooking Epstein and the war. But I am saying there probably are some pretty powerful globalists that would love to see a wag the dog scenario here.
Oh, sure. I agree with that. A guy named Andrews, number one on that list, probably, and a lot of other people that are still in active service to different countries, including our own, more than likely.
I don't know if you're familiar with a guy named John. He's a former CIA officer, reportedly. John Kiriakou, K-I-R-I-A-K-O-U. I don't know if you're familiar with him. You'll probably know him when you see. You'll probably know him when you see him if you follow any social media. He's giving a lot of interviews. Listen to him. I'd like to see what your thoughts are.
I was talking to Colonel Doug McGregor a few days ago about Iran's hypersonic missiles. And I said, Doug, I'm not a military guy. I don't know the details of these programs. Can an aircraft carrier defend itself from a hypersonic missile? And he said, no. There's no defense from a hypersonic missile. Well, the Iranians have hypersonics. The Chinese and the Russians gave them the technology and they developed it internally, domestically. An aircraft carrier is the size of a city. It has 25,000 sailors on it. Can you imagine if they sank one of those things? Or even just damaged it to the point where it would have to be towed into port for 2 years worth of repairs? I just see nothing good coming of an armed conflict with Iran. And I will say, And this may be a fault of mine, but I'm an eternal optimist. I will say that both the White House and the Iranians last week said, after the first round of indirect talks in Muscat, that progress was made.
All right. Well, I don't know how well it's going, but I don't know about what he said. That's why I have you.
Well, first of all,
carriers?
aircraft carrier don't have 25,000 people on them. They don't. And there are defensive capabilities against even hypersonic missiles, depending on the level of technology it is. I don't believe that the Iranians have the level of technology that we could not defend ourselves against it. And quite frankly, I think they would have used it already when we were attacking the Houthis over there in the Red Sea.
Well, this is again why we have you, so that we can.
I think they would have gotten some to the Houthis and they would have used them. They thought they could penetrate those defenses.
All right. So as I said, now this is why we have you to help us make sense of what people are saying out there.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to these aircraft carriers, however, how concerned are you when it comes to other vulnerabilities?
Well, every target or asset like an aircraft carrier is vulnerable in certain ways, but they're traveling it's called a carrier battle group. So you have many ships around it. Matter of fact, there's about 5,000 people on the carrier itself. There may be 25,000 in the battle group is what he's referred to. But all of those ships have different roles. Some of them are missile defense roles. So you have guided missile destroyers, cruisers, and those kind of things that are out there. And now you have 2 battle groups with all of their supporting assets and everything. And that doesn't even count the counter missile stuff that's on the ground at all the different U.S. bases and around in our allied countries that creates somewhat of a shield. It's not perfect. You saw during the 12-day war that some missiles got through. It's never been accurately reported what kind of damage they caused, and we may not know that for years, but eventually we'll know. So the defensive network is not perfect, but it is the best in the world at doing this. That's why there was so little damage, death, and destruction in that last round in the 12-day war. The Iranians, as I said at the beginning of this conversation, aren't even close to where they were before the 12-day war, though, Brandon, from a military capability perspective. So this is typical of Donald Trump. He comes in big, and he is putting he's talking, but he's bringing more muscle than any American president has brought to bear on the Iranian government and their mindset. He's brought it with him to do that. And progress being made is a good sign, but you can't trust these guys. They're crazy. They are crazy fanatics. Look, I'm telling you, it's my opinion that if we did go boots on the ground, as soon as we got close to a high-value target, it wouldn't surprise me that these nuts blow off a nuclear weapon, because I'm on the record as saying I believe they have at least 1, maybe 2 warheads already developed. They just haven't figured out how to mate them to a weapon system and target them yet. So I wouldn't be surprised if they blew their own city up to kill tens of thousands of Allied troops if we were to go in there on the ground. So it's got to be the Iranian people that remove this regime. We can support them. If the president does take military action, what I would expect is that he's going to stay true to his beliefs, not his voters necessarily, but what he believes, and that he's not going to do anything that would even come close to risking getting us involved in another protracted war, especially with ground forces, especially in a country like Iran. Just look at the geography of this thing and the logistics that it takes to adequately cover all the targets that would need to be covered. And there are a lot of them. This is not a simple target.
Let's talk about one guy that he's taking advice from, or at least has the president's ear and plays golf with him. Here we go. Watch this.
Survives all this bluster. God help the region. So my presence here today is to reassure the Israeli people there is no light or gaps between President Trump and Bibi about what to do and how to do it. There are two lines in the water right now. One's a diplomatic line, trying to find a way to end this regime diplomatically that will advance our national security interest. The other line is the military option. I think President Trump is looking for which line can catch the biggest fish. The bottom line is we're into weeks, not months, in terms of decision making. The Iranian people are hanging on. I attended a rally of 250,000 people in Munich. It's one of the most satisfying experiences of my professional life, to have 250,000 people, one, know who I was and appreciate what I was doing. Apparently, I'm commonly referred to as Uncle Lindsay in Iran, and apparently that's a good thing. But this hat, "Make Iran Great Again," says a lot in a very few words. By the way, the idea of making Iran great again hat came from Morgan Ortegas, who's not with us, but she thought this would be a good branding, and she was right. And this hat one day will go to Tehran. I look forward to delivering it to the people of Tehran. And President Trump, when asked about what this hat means and says, he said, I think what Senator Graham is trying to say is that the best way to make Iran great again is through the people, not the Ayatollah. I think he's right. So my hope is that in the coming weeks, if we can't find a diplomatic solution, that we engage in a great endeavor, supporting the people of Iran, demanding their freedom and the end of their oppression. We have military capabilities second to none. There is no more clever nation on the planet than Israel. There's no more powerful nation on the planet than the United States. As to the Iranian regime, you're weak because of your ideas. You're weak because of the way you've treated your people. You're weak because you're evil. Eventually, good will replace evil in Iran. To those who may participate in this endeavor, God bless you. God keep you safe if that day does come. Could our soldiers be hit in the region? Absolutely, they could. Can Iran respond if we have an all-out attack? Absolutely, they can. I think the risk associated with that is far less than the risk associated with blinking and pulling the plug and not helping the people as you promised. We told them to go back in the street, keep protesting. Help was on the way. We have to be good to our word. So this trip is a special trip for me. It's putting a fine point on something I've been working on for over 2 years.
Huh. He's been working on this for 2 years. Now, this is a man that does not have a wife or children. Am I mistaken in that statement?
That's correct. And he's very cavalier with my sons and grandchildren's lives and yours, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. A man with no wife and no children or grandchildren.
Yeah.
Can someone please tell Lindsey Graham to just sit down and be quiet?
Yeah, and in this business about look, there's no bigger advocate of Israel having a right to defend itself than I am, but we are not their defense force.
That's right.
The United States should only act in its national interest when we're talking about risking the lives of our sons and daughters and our friends,
right.
American friends. That's why I've called for no dual citizenship should be allowed. We have congressmen that are dual citizens, not just with Israel, but other countries too, like Somalia and those kind of things. And we should not allow it. All of that should be disbanded because you can only serve one master. And the master in the U.S. Armed Forces and the U.S. government is the Constitution of the United States. And Lindsey Graham is an arrogant warmonger that has been working on getting American kids killed for much longer than 2 years, Brandon, much longer than 2 years. He and his dead colleague, John McCain, did it together for many, many, many years. And it's the reason we have so many white headstones in Arlington Cemetery now that it's almost full. And we're going to have to change the rules on who's able to be buried there because it's getting so full. And my objective is to only advocate for the use of American force when it's in our interest. Is it in our interest for the Iranian Ayatollah regime to not be walking the face of the earth? Yes, it is. But is it in our interest to go in on the ground with a major invasion force at this point when, look, They may be a threat to our forces, but they're not a threat to us existentially here at home or to our assets around the world existentially. And we are not at that point where we should be thinking about a ground invasion of Iran. It is a much bigger problem set. And he used the words great endeavor. Those words have been used many, many times. The invasion of France at Normandy, the Desert Storm, when Hussein went into Kuwait. Those words have been used to signify major combat operations, including ground invasions. And that, I don't believe, is what President Trump's goal is. I think he sees right through it. But at the same time, he's brought his muscle with him to tell the Iranians, you're either going to give or something bad's going to happen to you. And he won't relent once he starts it. Mm-hmm. Now, as far as the Iranians on the ground, that's their opportunity. He told them that we will not let them down. That doesn't mean we send our men into Tehran to get killed. That means that they have to step up and take control of their country and return it to greatness. And we'll help them do that. But they have to do that. And I firmly believe Donald Trump believes that and has his eye on the ball from that perspective.
If this war were to start, how long do you think this action lasts?
I never put a prediction on warfare because wars always last longer than the objective intent was. And we have a really bad habit in the West of not defining what it means to achieve victory and get the heck out. So that's a risky prediction, and I won't predict it.
But it won't be like the 12-day war and be 12 days.
No, you can't put a time frame like that on that type of warfare.
So you think the American people, if this starts, you think the American people are going to be shocked how long this goes?
I think they'll be shocked, but I think they'll be disappointed if it involves American ground troops.
You do think they'll be shocked, though, at how long it goes?
Probably, yeah.
Do you think it'll get the coverage? I mean, I'm pretty sure you spent time watching CNN as well when we were all younger and there was no Fox News and CNN was covering George H. Bush's, first Iraq. And then from then, I mean, we're all glued to the CNN, right? You think we'll be watching this? Think we watch
it'll
this?
It'll get covered as long as they can use it to bash Donald John Trump and reduce his power and his effectiveness because for some reason there is a brain rot in a lot of Americans, especially in the media and other places in our country, that this man generates that level of hatred, even though it's not good for the country. But it'll get covered as long as they can use it to bash him. It won't get covered if it's successful and short. That's for sure. Not the way that it should be.
Yeah. Now, isn't that interesting? So if it's short and successful, you hardly know what happened. But if we start having casualties, they're going to cover it like crazy.
Oh, absolutely.
How do you think this, in closing, impacts the midterms? Oh, and by the way, oil prices and Russia and Iran exercises in the Strait of Hormuz, etc.
Yeah, well, if oil prices go up and affect the price at the pump, that's going to have an impact on the midterms. The American people voted for President Trump to bring prices down, and gas prices are pretty low right now. But everything that happens in the world, especially this part of the world, has some effect on that. Whether it's an effect that can be pushed off or tampered down, it's possible for us to do that now because we've reinvigorated our energy production capability here within the United States. But it's going to have some effect. But I'll just remind everybody that George H.W. Bush resoundingly won Operation Desert Storm. Popularity numbers were at the highest of the high, and then he was defeated and was a one-term president because of the economy.
Read my lips, no new taxes, and he raised taxes.
There you go.
Anything else, Colonel, or let you go?
No, just pray for peace.
Yeah. Colonel is on every day, 2 p.m. Central, 3 Eastern, right here at Worldview Tube. worldviewtube.com, and you can catch him in all of his other great information at robmaness.com, robmaness.com. And if it breaks out, we'll be breaking in and have all kinds of coverage by all kinds of analysts, including Colonel Rob Maness as well. So, Colonel, thank you for your service to the country. Glad you're on our team. And thanks for making time for us tonight.
Thank you, Brennan.
Colonel Rob Maness checking in, robmaness.com. We'll be right back after this short break.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed. Joining me now is Anni Cyrus. We have a lot of news on the desk tonight related to Islam in America, around the world, and Iran. Let's get to it. Anni, welcome back. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me, Brandon.
I first want to go to a video clip tonight. It's 6 minutes and 46 seconds, but I'm not going to play the whole 6 minutes and 46 seconds. I'm going to go about 3 minutes and 11 seconds in. This young lady, we've talked about her before. Tell our audience who she is, because, boy, she had a barn burner at the UN. She was speaking to a UN group. Tell us who she is before we play her video as to what she's saying about what's happening in Iran.
Sure. Her name is Masih Ali-Nejad. She is an Iranian-American journalist. She became fairly popular during the White Wednesday, which was a few years before Mahsa Amini, when on every Wednesday, women in Iran would come out wearing white, since black is the only allowed color. She ended up on the IRGC target list. There was a plot of kidnapping, which failed, and then there was a plot to kill her. That one also failed. She was under FBI watch at safe houses for a while, and about 3 weeks before New Year, there was a conviction of 2 Russians hired and paid by IRGC in New York City. And last week, she also faced the other assassin in New York City again. And she does a great job when it comes to Iran and the oppression of especially Iranian women. And I always put this disclaimer, me and her, we disagree on 99% of things. But when it comes to Iran and our fellow Iranian women, we agree 100%.
Yeah. All right. I want you to listen to a little what she says and respond. Listen to this, guys. This is, again, to a UN group.
I want Geneva to hear the voice of Iranians. Right now, after killing 40,000 people, they storm into hospitals. They're finishing off the injured ones. They're arresting doctors and nurses. They put the political prisoners on the death row. They're executing them. I want to ask Geneva to host a peace conference. Invite the opposition from Iran. Invite the leaders of Europe. Invite the leaders from European country and free world here to talk about an Iran without the Islamic Republic. I know my time is over, 3 minutes, but I'm going to show you something. The West waited too long. That doesn't call you Islamophobic if you treat ISIS the way that deserve to be. Yes. And the West waited too long. Too long. When I was fighting against compulsory hijab, they were like, oh, this is Islamophobic. Oh no, we have to respect others' culture. All the female politicians from West, they went to my country, they bowed the compulsory hijab from Sweden, Netherlands, Germany, France, from everywhere. High representative of Europe. They waited too long until Mahsa Amini got killed. Suddenly, they realized, oh, this is not their culture. They started to cut their hair to show their solidarity with us. Stop cutting your hair. Cut your ties with our killers. And second, they waited too long to designate Revolutionary Guards as a terrorist organization. After 7 years, after America did that, suddenly, 7 years later, they decided to designate Revolutionary Guards as a terrorist organization. Shame. 7 years, waited, and now 40,000 people have been killed. Now the time has come to understand. Don't wait that long. They call this reformist. That's why they keep the doors of diplomacy open when it comes to Rouhani. He killed 1,500 people. You call them reformist, we call them killer. Pezeshkian, he is not reformist. Under his regime, 40,000 people have been killed. When I see my sister standing here, my sister with bullets in their body, being blinded standing here, I feel ashamed that I am alive. I don't carry the bullet. How come Europeans do not feel ashamed by calling these people reformists? They are ISIS. Kick them out from your country and stand with the victims, not dictators. I know I had only 3 minutes. I'm gonna leave Geneva forever. You can kick me out forever, but I couldn't keep silent because I feel the guilt on my shoulder. I don't know how to save my people with empty hand. I cannot sometimes sleep. I cannot breathe. I cannot even eat because I feel guilty. I cannot believe how come the leaders of European countries do not feel guilty by shaking the hand of those Islamic Republic officials full of blood.
Full of blood. And of course, she's talking quickly in her accent, but she's referring to the woman that was murdered in Iran for taking off her hijab. And people thought,
she didn't even take off her hijab. Massa was showing a little bit of her beautiful hair was popping out of her hijab from the right side of her hijab. That was it.
And they beat her.
She was arrested. Well, she was traveling to Tehran as a visitor with her brother. When they got out of the train at the terminal, she was arrested right there. She was taken into the detention center. At few hours after being in the detention center, she was transferred to hospital in coma. 2 days later, she died. An official report said it was a blunt object that caused her brain to basically, cause of death was blunt trauma to the head. That's what she was referring to, yes.
And this is where the people say, oh, it's just their culture. And she said, then they figured out, finally, this is not the culture of Iran. This is not the culture.
Yes. And I should, this speech was given at Geneva.
Switzerland.
Yes. The day after the second round of negotiations were happening in Geneva between Iran and U.S., which I have about 5 hours to talk about that, but anyhow. And she was there to accept, on behalf of Iranian people, to accept the reward of Human Rights for Freedom and Democracy Bravery Award of 2026. I completely understand her frustration because when she showed up, she was already fired up. Like, you had to wait to award Iranians basically after all of this. You kept shaking the hands, as she said. Well, she says full of blood. I said those hands that dipped their bread into Iranian people's blood and eat it. But the frustration shared by all of us. Of course, she's there, so she talks about Europeans, but she had a show here in America. She went on CNN, and she said the same thing about us. She said the same thing about Canada, all the free world leaders, basically.
Would she ever let me interview her, you think?
I don't know. For two reasons, I don't know. As I said, you see her mainly on CNN. She's a very progressive liberal. Except, as I said, because of that mindset, she drew the line and went beyond borders and does the feminist movement for Iranian women as well. And secondly, as of right now, she's on the other side of majority of Iranian people. She's not at least she has announced that Crown Prince Pahlavi doesn't have her vote. Not that he cares, I don't think. I shouldn't talk on his behalf. But point is, for those two reasons, I don't know if she would come on your show, considering you are a Christian conservative network that has been pretty supportive of voice of Iranian people, which means Crown Prince Pahlavi.
Right. Let me show a quick video here. Here's what happened to one gal for not wearing hijab. Wow. Can you imagine when that finally comes to America? Can you imagine the left and the the lesbians and the woke and all the rest of them and the gays, and how they're just going to be beside themselves? And all I'm going to be able to say is, well, we tried warning you for decades. You wouldn't listen to us.
I can imagine it, yes. And I can certainly imagine them not ever taking responsibility themselves for wanting so badly to belong and coexist and chant together. They will blame everyone, and for a long time they're going to be in denial. Mm-hmm. But yes, I'm with you, Brandon. At least for the last 10 days, I'm just at a point of, I think I started my show yesterday with I'm wearing my I told you so mask again, because I told you. I said from day one, negotiation. You asked me on your show before the first round, you said, what do you think is going to happen? I said, they're going to meet again, do the second round and buy more time, and on and on. And that's exactly what happened. We met them again in 1 week gap, and we concluded, by the way, I don't know if you've covered forgive me if I'm being repetitive for your audience, but we went from direct negotiations in Oman, not yesterday, but Monday before that, we met with Iran in Oman. In the room, we had Iranian representatives. Then we had Kushner, Witkoff, and the head of Sadkan, Hakam. The yesterday one became indirect. Witkoff and Kushner weren't in the room anymore. It was the foreign minister of Oman talking on behalf of America to the Iranian representatives in the room. So, and then we gave them 2 weeks. They have until March 3rd to come back with their rewritten proposal of the deal.
So this war is not going to start till at least sometime in March, probably, right?
You know my answer. This war is not going to start.
Oh,
not from our end.
So they're moving all of these expensive assets into the region only to finally move them back out.
Not necessarily move them back out immediately, but yes.
Okay, so let me go another way. Is Israel going to start this, and then the U.S. is going to be there to back them up if needed?
That is the most likely scenario based on what I'm watching. Yes.
I mean, that would politically give some cover to President Trump if Israel does what Israel needs to do for their own safety and protection, and then the U.S. is just there to back up and has to get involved. But Israel goes ahead and starts it. But of course, there are some who are saying that they would not be shocked if Iran did the first strike.
Iran's not going to do the first strike until after the third round of negotiations.
Okay, but after the third round or whenever, could you see Iran doing first strike?
Most certainly, yes. Yes, I can. And that's the reason I say until the next round is if Khamenei comes to realize his days are numbered, he's not going to go down without a fight.
So do you think this is going to happen one way or the other?
No, because if we keep bending, war won't happen. We just give them what they want in 2 weeks.
But Benjamin Netanyahu is not going to go for that, is he? He's already said on the tarmac the other day, you can't negotiate with these people. They're liars. This is what they do. You can't. This is all futile. He came on and said that.
Yeah, but Netanyahu also said from October of last year, he said, we're not going to be taking a seat at your peace board.
And now he is.
But last week he signed the agreement. So I don't like to use this word, but they're all a bunch of politicians. I trust Bibi way more than I trust Trump, but Bibi is still a politician. He can't go up against the entire region alone. And if America tells Bibi that you're on your own if you want to go in, then again, we should not compare anything coming up with the 12 Days War, because that was an absolute surprise. They had the upper hand.
Can you imagine the anti-Semitism that is going to really escalate even more should we get into a war over there, because either Israel strikes first or Iran strikes and then Israel moves and defends themselves? But either way, if we get tangled up in this, okay, and bodies start coming home, and there was a report out today, one guy was, Mr. Barnes was talking about, you could have 10,000 American casualties, soldiers. If we start seeing flag-draped coffins coming home, one of my biggest concerns is not only the death of our soldiers, obviously, but the world, and particularly Americans, are going to blame the Jews. They're going to blame Israel. This could be used at a spiritual level to, again, create such massive anti-Semitism. And not only just massive anti-Semitism, how about the backlash against those of us that are clear-headed, common sense, biblically based Christian Zionists? And I give those parameters because some of the Zionists and the Christian Zionists, they're out to lunch, okay? They're false teachers, they're false prophets, they're false apostles. Many of them claim they're for Israel. If you really study their eschatology, they're not. They're into replacement theology. You wouldn't know it unless you study their theology, what they really believe. Some of them, they have this mentality that to be a Christian Zionist, you have to basically, agree to send your kids off to war to die. I'm a biblical Christian Zionists based on what the Bible describes, not all the extra rules some of them have written. And I was trying to explain to a friend of mine today who's a national figure. I said his name, you guys would know him. I said, you need to understand, just as there are crazies in the MAGA movement and crazies in every movement there are people that are crazy in the Zionist, Christian Zionist camp that have written rules and written descriptions of what a Zionist or a Christian Zionist is that doesn't match up with the Bible. And I was explaining what I am from the Bible. But can you imagine, I want you to comment on that, number one, but can you imagine the backlash if this turns into a massive Middle Eastern war and we have flag-draped coffins coming back? Don't you think this is going to create a big problem for Christians and Jews, Christian Zionists and the Jews, that Satan will use this even more as a pincher strategy coming from the left and the right to pinch us in the middle and bring persecution to us?
It most certainly will. However, I would say, number one, depending on where it ends, it may not. Let me elaborate. If we stay back, meaning we're just a backup, and we allow Israel to finish the regime, that means liberation of Iran. That means within 6 to 12 months, such a steady stability in the region that America will be benefiting from too much for Americans to be able to blame Israel. But if we go in, we end it, we turn it into an unfinished, another ceasefire Gaza scenario, then yes, absolutely. I will be one of them. Not blaming Israel. I will be one of the people who's going to come back out of why did we get involved in a business that wasn't ours, and when we made it ours, we did a incomplete job. Yes, go ahead.
You do know there are crazies in the MAGA movement, right?
I'm very certain of that.
And there are crazies in the so-called Christian camp, right? I mean, there's crazies in every group, right?
Everywhere.
Every group has extremists. They go way beyond what was the original goal or definition or theology or eschatology or doctrine or mission statement of any group. This always happens. But,
I wouldn't even call them extremists or crazies. I would say there are obsessed people.
But would you agree when I was explaining to one of my friends today, a national figure, I was trying to explain to him, you are picking up on a definition of Zionism or Christian Zionism based on some of the people that are going way too far. Their litmus test for being a Zionist or Christian Zionist isn't even biblical, Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yes, I have had that argument with a few people online myself. When they come at me and like, you shouldn't say I'm a Christian Zionist. That is the radical, crazy, misunderstood. And I'm like, no, I am a Christian Zionist by words of Bible, though.
Yeah.
Not by definition of those out there who have become obsessed with their own vision.
Yes.
That's why I call it obsession. It's their obsession with their own understanding and their own vision. But again, unfortunately, a lot of people don't, like, I won't even get a chance, Brandon. A lot of them shut me down immediately. It's like, there is no difference. You all believe the same thing, but when we push you, you just hide behind some narrative. I was like, okay.
Yep. Well, that's what I was explaining to my friend. I'm like, don't judge me based on what these people are saying. That's not what the Bible teaches. That's not what I'm saying, I believe. And I think he was really happy to have that conversation. I want to transition to Texas, to Dallas. Congressman Chip Roy. What is he running for? We interviewed him last spring. Didn't I interview him last spring? What's he running for in Texas? Does anybody know? Is he running for Attorney General? What's he running for? Attorney General? All right, listen to what he said. I guess this was in a debate last night or last day or so.
We introduced legislation in Congress to take away the tax status for care. I introduced legislation to pause all immigration until we've gotten our house in order to stop what is happening to this great country and this great state. To be very clear, when you talk to the experts, the Muslim Brotherhood has a specific plan to Islamify the state of Texas. You're seeing it unfold in Dallas-Fort Worth right now. There are no-go zones where women don't want to go here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. There are people that are listening to prayer calls. We are having to deal with a massive change in our culture because we haven't recognized that there is a war being carried against us. If you're Attorney General, you have enormous power to follow the money. And as Attorney General, I will go after the 600 plus organizations that are advancing Sharia, undermining Western civilization, using the full power of the office of.
All right, good for him. If we had told people after 9/11 they'd be doing calls to prayer in Minneapolis over loudspeakers, people would say that would never happen, but it has. But they would certainly never believe that a state like Texas would be taken over by the Muslims. And yet here we are, 25 years this fall since 9/11, 2001, and Texas is falling to the Islamist. And I know there's a lot of tough talk at election time, but at the end of the day, I don't expect anything to change. I don't expect anything to really happen. It's all rhetoric. I'm not saying anything in a derogatory way against Chip Roy. I'm just saying at the end of the day, when it comes to the people that are there now, I don't know what Chip will do. I hope he'll do what he says he's going to do. But when it comes to the people that are there now, I think it's all a lot of political smoke for elections and fodder. I don't see anything really changing. I will be shocked. Not based on past patterns. I don't see anything changing. Texas will fall to the Islamists. If nothing changes, and I don't see it doing that happening, Texas will fall to the Islamists. True or false?
Definitely true. I would say this, when it comes to Mr. Roy, he does know what he's talking about. He has done a lot of talking and educating himself through experts, as he mentioned on that video. However, he won't be able to do what he wants to do for the fact that, I mean, just look at Ken Paxton. How quickly was he shut down when he started to investigate Epic City? He got orders from federal government to drop it. So the biggest problem is we do still have genuinely legit people who want to make that change, but they can't do it because the power, the infiltration inside our federal and state government by Islamists is bigger than those good guys out there who want to do the right thing. And that's what they're coming to realize. When he says care, he has come to realize, he has learned through many pages of research by experts that care has the point of just referring to care as unindicted co-conspirator of Holy Land Foundation. They're worse than that. That is nothing right now. So that's why he says the thing he said about care, and he genuinely wants to stop care. But as I said, you're right. It is not going to happen, not because we're being negative. It's just, pattern recognition. Again, you look at just last 12 months of how much Islam has infiltrated our government. That says it all.
I saw a video earlier today. I should have marked it, but it was a group of Muslims talking about how they are deliberately using the U.S. Constitution in America to further their agenda. They're using the Constitution to their advantage.
Yes, that's why I have a very, very 37-page long Substack on Constitution versus Sharia, One Must Fall. And I wrote it last year. Because the very way they're using our Constitution, there's an exact way for us to use our Constitution to stop them. But they seem to read our Constitution better than most Americans.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? All right, I want to go real quick to video footage. Well, here it is right here. This is footage coming out of a practice with Iran and Russia. They were all practicing near the Straits of Hormuz the other day. Look at this.
همزمان سامانه‌های موشک‌های کروز ضد ناوشکن روی اهداف در تنگه هرمز قفل راداری کردند. حالا هدف تعیین شده در تنگه هرمز همزمان از سراسر ایران، از دریا و ساحل و نقاط مرکزی مورد حمله موشک‌های با ارتقای سر جنگی این موشک‌ها شدت تخریب و آسیب به ناوشکن‌های دشمن بیشتر از قبل شده. همچنین با سامانه‌های هدایت جدید این موشک‌ها می‌توانند از هر سمت و جهتی به اهداف خود حمله کنند.
Wow. All right.
That was,
yeah.
If I could just quickly put it inside, because the naval exercise of Russia and Iran is happening tomorrow over the Sea of Oman. The video you just played was from IRGC's naval practice by itself.
Thank you for that correction. There's a big fire that went down in the last, 24 hours in Iran? Big fire? What's this about?
Yes. This is one of the besieged buildings or headquarters in Sabzavor. This was last night, our local time. By the way, I should be, besieged is basically the child of IRGC, also known as morality police.
So that is basically a military installation?
Yes.
And do you think that's Mossad doing that?
I do. I believe this is the fifth one in last 10 days, and I think all 5 of them were Mossad.
Yeah, and this is what we call gray terror or the gray advancement. This is what's often done by special forces before a nation goes to war. We've talked about gray terror in the U.S. hitting our infrastructure, hitting food processing plants, all the different things we've seen over the last few years that you're going, what is this? And of course, this is described as gray terror, going after key infrastructure before war actually happens. And of course, this is, again, I think she's right. This is probably Mossad, Israel doing this in anticipation, which leads me to believe that one way or the other, this thing is going to happen.
Well, I would say, again, because it's besieged, the way I look at it is more of, I'm not saying this is not going to happen. Well, I as I said, U.S. is not going to attack Iran. U.S. might end up getting involved for a ceasefire or stealing credit, but we're not going to make the move first. Now, that being said, the buildings, all of them were besieged. This is more of Israel helping Iranian people because, as I said, besieged, pretty much the people you saw on the streets, killing Iranians, arresting Iranians, dragging them into, their cars, that's besieged. This is more of Mossad helping Iranian people by eliminating the armed manpower on the streets of Iran.
Mm-hmm.
That's based on the locations they're hitting. And that, I don't, I'm going to stop. I guess my question for you, Brandon, is here's my understanding. Okay, we have all of this power around Iran right now. We have given them too much window to prepare and get ready. As we just said, Russia getting involved. I published a Substack today of how much of the blackout, the 10 days blackout we reported on, how much of it was with help of China happening. It wasn't even the regime. So you look at all of that problems. Number one, as it is, Republicans are concerned with midterm. Is Trump going to start a war a few months before midterm to guarantee lose of seats? I doubt it. Number two, he's getting all the signatures he likes on that peace board. Is he going to lose that momentum with a war with Iran? That's going to drag in. Iran is there, Houthis are there, Hezbollah's there, Hamas is there, Taliban's there. You know what I mean? It just makes no sense unless he just woke up and had an epiphany and he realized that he needs to deliver on all the tough talk. By policy and diplomacy and politics, attacking Iran right now would make zero sense for everything that he thinks he has
Unless,
achieved.
of course, he's being walked into a trap, and you got Lindsey Graham, and we've dealt with that tonight already. You got Lindsey Graham over there in Tel Aviv saying what he is. You got globalists. You got world puppet masters that all want Epstein off the front covers and stop talking about that. I mean, what if he's just being walked into a trap?
Well, as I played a clip of Alex Jones on my show, something I never thought would happen in my life, but he was a guest on Patrick Bet-David, which I check on him regularly because he needs to be checked. But I played a video of Alex Jones himself saying, I choose a lot of different wordings. He said, to answer the question by Patrick Bet-David was, Alex, why, like, if you could give advice to Trump right now, what would that advice be? And Alex Jones basically says nothing, because there was a time where if you gave facts to Trump, he would change his mind. But today, unless you are rubbing his ego, he won't even hear you. So there's not a single advice I can give him he would listen to, because what I have to say is not what he likes to hear. That being said, which I've been saying the same thing, I'm always like, it's not about bad advisors, it's about who he chooses to listen to. I don't think any of those traps are going to work. Again, this man has been chasing after peace prize and peace president title. And he no matter who sets the trap, Trump is going to know the first bomb drop, all of his walking around with the crown he has given himself, FIFA might even come and take his peace prize away.
Gordon Chang has retweeted this. China assisting Iran with intel, surveillance and real-time tracking through satellites to expose U.S. military buildups and positions into open-source targets for Iran military. China is effectively serving as Iran's advanced surveillance and reconnaissance partner, providing satellite imagery, navigation support, and possibly real-time intelligence, including access to the Beidou navigation system as an alternative to U.S.-controlled GPS amid heightened U.S.-Iran tensions. Unconfirmed claims point to real-time data showing on U.S. naval and air movements, this real-time data sharing, potentially leveling the playing field for Iran against superior U.S. forces. Gordon Chang has put that out today.
That was the Substack I just said that I put out today. The Chinese role in the blackout and then expanding it into how much surveillance. In my Substack, I've documented that the IRGC members have been trained by China since 2015 on operating these machines and systems. So yes, that's why I keep saying, if he goes in now, he being Trump, a month ago was a very different story. Today, he goes in, that's going to turn. All day, Iran International has been saying that their experts are saying the same thing. If he goes in, this is going to be a full-blown war in the region, and only God knows how far it's going to expand.
Oh, you got a new book out.
Something nobody wants.
Yep, you got a new book out. Tell our audience about it and where they can get it, please.
Sure. The Architecture of Jihad is set on pre-order of Kindle on Amazon. The pre-orders for signed copies will be available on March 5th through my website. So go to my website to submit your request to be added to the list. We have limited inventory for signed copies, only 150. Then the book itself will be released to public on March 21st through Amazon, both paperback and Kindle, The Architecture of Jihad.
There you go. liveuptofreedom.com to find it, liveuptofreedom.com, and then her Substack is liveuptofreedom.substack.com. Annie, are there many networks covering this as closely as we are? Because I know a lot of them are obsessed with the story of Nancy Guthrie. Are many networks covering this story? Because this is potentially life-altering for a lot of people, including Americans.
No. There are a lot of programming that are putting their own non-confirmed twist into what's coming, the clickbait programming. But I have not seen any network or any individual shows specifically, especially on Rumble, that has touched on anything we touched on tonight. Nothing. Nobody has touched on Masih Alinejad. Nobody has talked about the second round of negotiation. Nobody talked about the missile practice yesterday or the one coming up tomorrow. No. They are not doing that.
Well,
and right now, as you said, though, I am with them on many aspects of the entanglement of Epstein files, but that seemed to be the bigger headline going around right now.
One final question. The Muslims, boy, they've really come out against the dogs. Islamic preacher in England, we will kill those dogs. I talked about that tonight in my Worldview Report. Boy, they really don't like the dogs. I know Usama's told me how much they don't like dogs, particularly black dogs. This story's getting some traction among at least the conservative circles.
Yes. Some of us covered this many years ago when we said Muhammad is the reason that dogs are considered filthy in Islam. You are not to have a dog in your home. You're not to have a dog in general. And my personal opinion is, we know how dogs are, especially you, Brandon. They sense good and they sense evil. And Muhammad was keeping all the dogs away from himself, so they wouldn't spot the evil there, right?
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
In Iran, example of it that I have reported on again, in Islamic Republic of Iran, there are permits. You can become, it's hiring. You can become hired by the government to get a license and get a paycheck to go out and kill dogs. You hunt dogs, you kill them. And most people who do have dogs as pets, they struggle to keep it a secret, or otherwise the dog will be taken away, put down, and the owner will be they have to pay a fine and sometimes possibly face short-term prison time. But yes, that's the religion of peace. Wow. All love and equality. As Linda Sarsour said once, our prophet was the first women's rights activist. And then she came out later and said he was also the first animal rights activist.
Oh, brother.
So these are all evidence.
Let me go to one last clip tonight before we let you go. Dr. Phil interviewing Benjamin Netanyahu. Listen to this and watch, please.
Do you think that October 7th gave people a sense of moral authority to express their anti-Semitism?
Well, because the internet has been flooded by fake propaganda describing Israel as the aggressor instead of the country that's been aggressed upon, saying that falsely accusing us of genocide when we have sacrificed our soldiers in taking out terrorist places that we could have just carpet bombed and we didn't. We do everything in our power to keep civilians out of harm's way, and Hamas did everything in their power to keep them in harm's way. They shoot people. When we tell Palestinian civilians, please get out of this neighborhood because we're coming in, Hamas shoots them if they want to come out. But they're not only targeting us, and they not only chant death to America, death to Israel, death to America, they want to get rid of us in order to get rid of you. But they're also going after minorities, and specifically against Christians. Christians throughout the Middle East are being oppressed. They're being driven out. It's something that the only safe place for Christians, where the Christian community is growing and thriving, is in Israel. They've been kicked out of Turkey. They've been oppressed in Syria, in Lebanon, in the areas that we handed over to the Palestinians some 30 years ago. We were controlling Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus. At that time, the overwhelming majority of the Arabs living in Bethlehem were Christian Arabs, over 80%. Now, after 30 years, they're down to 20% because they're oppressed, and so they leave. But that's not what's happening in Israel itself. In Israel itself, they're growing, they're thriving. They serve in the army. Christian Arabs serve in the army, yes. Very brave soldiers, because they know that Israel is fighting not only our battle.
Wow. Comment on that? Closing comment?
I say 100%. He's right. That is very true. That's why I always say I understand some people's frustration and the America first, but Americans tend to not understand. If Israel is not there, we won't leave the free life with you here. They are the first, they are fighting for all of us. As he said, I'm just going to repeat what he said. That's why I am all about supporting, not dropping our priorities, don't get me wrong, but supporting Israel is important because they are the last line of defense when it comes to freedom fight versus Islamization of the world, global caliphate, which is sad.
LiveUpToFreedom.com, LiveUpToFreedom.substack.com. As always, thank you, Annie.
Thank you so much, Brandon. Be safe.
You too, my friend. All right, guys, that's our broadcast for tonight. We appreciate what we're doing, all the news and information we're cranking out. You do, please go to worldviewfoundation.com and make a contribution of any size. We are looking for more regular monthly contributors. We've had a few donors that have had to send us letters saying, want you to know we have to stop giving. We want you to know why. It's not personal. We love what you guys do. We just have other financial commitments that we need to concentrate on, and cost of living and fixed income and retired. And we understand, totally get it. We have to make up for those people that we're losing. So please consider becoming a regular contributor now if you can. Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com, and you'll find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. And don't forget, you can now register for our 23rd annual National Worldview Weekend. The only difference is this year we're making it free and we're moving it to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the Waukesha Expo Center. You can go to worldviewtube.com/events and register. It is free, but you need to register so you have a seat. We were there last April, had a standing room only, filled it up. We anticipate doing that again, but this time it won't be just one night. It'll be Friday night and Saturday during the day. And we'll be bringing in about 8 or 9 speakers all together. Quite an event. And again, you can register for free, secure your seat at worldviewtube.com/events. Roll the music. Let's call it a night. By the way, keep ordering your free business cards. You can get a stack of free business cards. Pass them out to waiters, waitresses, people that you run into in the grocery store or wherever you might be. Getting your car fixed, the mechanic, whatever. Say, hey, would you guys like to watch a free network that'll help you understand what's happening in the world? They cover so many topics. Check it out. It's free, worldviewtube.com. So why not order a set of these right now at worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. May God save America. Take care.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon House.
All right, welcome. Glad you're with us. We're going to be joined here in just one moment by Dr. Rob Lindstedt and then Alex Newman. We're going to first talk about what is our biblical battle plan going forward. We are clearly involved in a spiritual battle. It's funny to one degree, isn't it? To listen to all the people that say that. Have you ever heard so many people in your Christian lifetime say that? Hey, we're in a spiritual battle. It can only be described